Well, hello, thank you for joining me today again on the Church History Trail. You're very welcome to the programme. And I bought this painting that I want to show you a few months ago when I was down in Sion Mills doing a wee bit of videoing of the history of the village. And this was in an antique shop. So I quite liked it and I ended up buying it. I think if I remember rightly, it was about £125 that I paid for it. But certainly a beautiful painting, and even the frame looks beautiful as well. It's like something you would see in one of the old historical mansions, like Castle Ward or Florence Court, or maybe in a museum like the Belfast Museum. But certainly is a beautiful painting. Now, I would assume that it's depicting a battle from the English Civil Wars. Can't be 100% sure, but that's certainly what it looks like to me. And it is very detailed. It's absolutely beautiful. But you can see there in the foreground you have two horsemen battling it out, and one of them is thrusting his sword through the other one. And he has captured the reaction to the horse fantastically there. You can see the fear, you can see the excitement and the art of battle for the horse. And then at the bottom, there's also, I don't think he's dead, I think he's wounded. A wounded soldier who has come off his horse. So, quite amazing. And as I say, the frame gives it that wee special touch, as you can see. So I wanted to know who the painter was here. Because I thought if I find out who the painter is, that I might be able to see this painting and know exactly what it was about. So there is a name down at the left-hand bottom here that I'm going to show you. As you can see, it is T. Forbes. So I don't know who T. Forbes was, so I wanted to find out. And so I googled him. Now, when I googled him, this is what it said. The most well-known painter associated with the name T. Forbes is Stanhope Alexander Forbes, who was born on the 18th of November 1857 in Dublin, and he died on the 2nd of March 1947 in Newland in Cornwall. So he's known as the father of the Newland School. He was an Irish artist and a founding member of the influential Newland School of Painters in Cornwall and England. His work is known for its realism and depiction of Cornish life, particularly fishing and coastal scenes. Now, it didn't say anything about battles, but that doesn't mean to say that he didn't do battles, didn't paint battles. Now, Henry Tate, he bought one of Forbes's paintings, The Health of the Bride, which is now in the famous Tate Art Gallery in London. And of course, it's now called Tate Britain. But he also had a son, and Forbes's son was called Alec, and Alec served in the Duke of Cornwall's Light Infantry Regiment, and he was actually killed on the 3rd of September 1916 during World War I. So is this the same man who painted my painting? Is this painting done by Stanhope Alexander Forbes? Maybe there's an expert antique or somebody who's very glued into paintings who would know the answer to that. If you do, then please leave me a wee comment. But of course, two well-known characters of the English Civil War were Oliver Cromwell, who was a parliamentarian, and King Charles I. Now, Oliver Cromwell is one of the most important figures in English history, and he was born at Huntingdon in the year 1599, and it was on a large farm that he grew up. That was his father's farm. Now, one story tells of an adventure which happened to him whilst he was staying at the house of his grandfather, Sir Henry Cromwell. Sir Henry had a pet monkey which was allowed to climb all over the house, and one day it seized hold of Oliver, who was only a few months old, and carried him up onto the roof. As you can see. So the people obviously looked on in horror. His family looked on in horror at this monkey carrying young Oliver onto the roof. I'm sure they were going frantic. But they were able to get the monkey down and young Oliver down safely as well. But could you imagine? English history probably would have been so much different if young Oliver had have fell from the monkey while he was on that roof. Who knows? But of course, Oliver had 6 sisters but no brothers, and so his friends were the little boys of the town who were his schoolmates. Now, we don't know whether this future ruler of England was a good scholar or not, but he was certainly liked by the other boys. And Oliver's uncle was also called Oliver Cromwell. Obviously, that's where young Oliver got his name from. And so Oliver's uncle, Sir Oliver Cromwell, was an important man, and he lived on an estate much larger than the farm belonging to Oliver's father. He was in fact so important in the county that on more than one occasion he was visited by the king, King James I. And on one of these visits, the king was accompanied by his son Charles, and whilst Sir Oliver was entertaining the king, the 2 boys, Oliver Cromwell and Prince Charles, were sent into the garden to play. And according to the story, the boys started to quarrel, and they were fighting with each other. As you can see, that's Oliver on top of Prince Charles I, and he's giving him a good thrashing, and the wee dog's going daft. But of course, these 2 boys would meet again as men, and they would fight again, only this time there would be an army behind each of them. And again, Oliver would be victorious over Charles. Now, the Battle of Marston Moor, it was fought near York in July 1644, and the result was a disaster for the king's forces, King Charles, and his army was led by Prince Rupert. The Parliament army had been joined by some Scottish soldiers and was drawn up on a hillside overlooking the moor. Now, Cromwell with his mounted soldiers was on the left, and Prince Rupert marched out from York to meet them, and he drew up his men on the moor below the Parliament army. The 2 armies were quite close to one another, and before Prince Rupert's soldiers were in their positions for the battle, the Parliamentarian soldiers charged down the hill. Now, at first, it looked as though the Parliament army was going to be beaten. The Cavaliers on the right scattered the Scots, and thinking that the battle was won, rode after them as they ran away. This left Prince Rupert's horsemen facing Cromwell's Ironsides. And after a long and fierce struggle, Cromwell's trained soldiers were too much for the brave but undisciplined Cavaliers. Soon they were driven from the field and battle was won. So you can see a wee depiction there of it. So I'm just wondering, is that what my painting is showing, one of those English Civil War battles? I'm assuming that it is. Now, on the 20th of January 1649, King Charles was brought before a court of justice at Westminster and charged as a tyrant and as one who had caused the death of thousands of Englishmen. in the Civil War. He was found guilty, and 10 days later, when the palace courtyard at Whitehall was deep in snow, he was executed. It is said that Cromwell actually tried his best to save the king's life. And George, of course, might have remained as king if he hadn't have been so obstinate and stupid and untrustworthy. But the king was dead. But the Scots and many people in England recognised his son as the rightful king of England. And he was crowned in Scotland. And of course, that was in the year 1660. And his name was King Charles II. Now, of course, Cromwell left a bitter pill, a bitter taste in the mouth of Irish people whenever he came to Ireland in about 1649. And in Ireland, Cromwell was the most hated of all. In fact, there are still men in Ireland who, at that time, were ready to fight for King Charles II after Charles I had been executed. In order to crush them, of course, Cromwell crossed to Ireland with his army. Now, the Irish were no match for trained and experienced soldiers, and the two towns of Drogheda and Wexford, which tried to hold out against them, were besieged and quickly captured. And so all the defenders were killed without mercy. And to this day, the people of Ireland hate Cromwell's memory. And so he's certainly not liked down south. And so there you can see the Irish and also Cromwell's army. And the law of engagement back then, what they did was they offered a town or a settlement the opportunity to surrender, but when they refused it, then what happened was, unfortunately, all the inhabitants of that same town were killed. But it certainly left a bitter taste in the mouth of the Irish people. So, there you go. If you know anything about this painting, I am 99.9% sure that it's depicting a battle from the English Civil War, but I don't know which one. So, if you know, then leave me a wee comment. Thanks for watching, and God bless.